Hi everyone, I'm reviewing the VacMaster VP215 chamber sealer. I got this sealer because I do a lot of sealing, especially during times of the year that I'm blanching and freezing vegetables, and I also freeze a lot of meat, a lot of leftovers. But at any rate, for this particular sealer, you probably want to get a cart, something like the one that I have here. It has nice storage where you can keep all your bags, and I also have a little serving tray here so I can move bags of sealed vegetables or whatever I'm doing. It helps. But this is not something that you want to have to move. It's very heavy. It's probably somewhere near 100 pounds. So a cart is very helpful if you need to move it. Fortunately, I have two kitchens in this house, so I can keep this in another kitchen. But I'm doing the review in my main kitchen because I have birds in the other one that are too loud. At any rate, you can find plenty of videos on YouTube that show you something about the initial setup. First thing you really need to do is to use the oil, put it into this container, fill it up to the mark on the bottle. To put in the oil, you have to take off the back, removing the 4 little screws that are on the back of this, and the back of it comes off, and then there's an area that you can pour in the oil, and you can view how much oil is in it, which I don't think you can see right now because there's not enough light. But when you can see the oil in that little window at about 1/2 to 3/4, you're good. The other little glitch that I found when I bought this sealer initially, and of course I didn't know anything about it, but you've got your sealing bar here, and it was in the sealer in that position. So naturally it's not going to seal. What you have to do is pull it out and sit it on the 2 little pins to get it properly in where it's supposed to be. Then you're good to go. You have the 2 spacers here that are useful depending on how thick or thin whatever your sealing is. So if you have something that's not so thin, you'd use 2, then you can take them out. And the whole idea of this is that with these spacers in here, you have less air to remove, so it takes a little less time. For normal storage, when you're not using the device, you would have this lever on. When you want to use it, take this lever off, let the device open, and then turn it on after you've removed that device. Then you're good to go to start sealing whatever you want to seal. The other things that you have to look at or consider are the adjustments. You've got a set button here that you can set the vacuum, the gas does nothing, the sealing time, and the cooling time. According to the directions, if you read them, vacuum time, they tell you to start it at about 45 seconds. For most jobs, that's way too long, but I'll get into that a little bit later. The other thing you want to set is your sealing time. For 3mm bags, 1.2 sealing time is perfect, and the cooling time should be about twice what the sealing time is. So if you were to use 5mm bags or Mylar bags, you would set up the sealing time and also increase the cooling time accordingly. Another thing that I want to point out here is that when you're setting the sealing time, when it's good to go, you're going to get the 2 dashes or you get EE. That means it's fine. Okay, you set the vacuum time. Vacuum time is comparable to percentage of air to be taken out. So something you have to watch is this dial, and it tells you pounds per inch or whatever, but the vacuuming that it's going to take out, how much of the vacuuming. If it gets down to minus 0.01, that's 100%. And that's a little bit high for some things, but you have to kind of look at it depending on what you're sealing. If it's something you don't want squished, then you may want it to stop at when it's in the yellow, or maybe at the beginning of the green. If it's something that's very soft, you want to stop it where it's mostly just going to seal. But at any rate, 25 is usually good. 20 to 25 is good for most things. But I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how to set the seal. For example, if you want to bring down the seal time, you can bring it down to as low as you want. But then when you do that, depending on what you're sealing, you also want to watch this little meter. Because if it's something that can be squished, then you want it to get maybe into the yellow or the beginning of the green. If it gets to that point, hit the stop and it'll automatically seal. So you don't have to worry about squishing. Although part of this really is trial and error, depending on what you're sealing. So I'm going to do a little demonstration here to give you an idea of something that is very squishable. It's a foam rubber piece, and I'll show you the different pressures and what it does to it in each case. Okay, for the first demo, I'm going to have it set to 15 seconds, and this is going to take a little less time than, say, 25 seconds as far as the sealing. Okay, when you're good to go, you set up the bag so that it's against the sealing bar, and as soon as you close it, hold it for a second or two, it's going to start sealing. Whoops. You got to make sure that your set button is set. Okay, now we're on ED, that means we're okay to go. Alright, push it down, it's sealing. See how this goes up? I'm going to stop this when it gets right to the green. Stop it right there. Okay, this is what it looks like right now. Squished it some, didn't squish it real bad, but it's somewhat squished. Okay, now I've cut off the top of the bag, so we're going to try sealing it again, see what happens. Okay, we've still got it on 15. I didn't change the setting. It says ED. Now, close the sealer. It starts doing the sealing. I'm going to stop it at red when it gets to the red. Okay, open up. It's not squished quite so badly. Okay, but there's still a little bit of squish, but then you got to figure this is styrofoam or a foamy material, so it's going to squish real easy. And the other thing I would like to point out is this does a double seal, which with my food saver I had to do it manually to do a double seal, and also it's a nice wide seal, so it's really a good seal. Okay, so now I cut off the top of the bag again, and let's see what it does. This time I'm going to stop it when it gets a little bit lower on the pressure. So here we go. We're getting up to 0.06. Stop it there. Last time we stopped it right at the end of the red. Squished even less. So you see there is some control over the amount of suction that you get. The other option too would be to change your seal time, but I think if you figure out how much pressure you need, you almost have better control. I can try setting this down. Let's go down to 10. And again, I cut off the top of the bag. So we got it set down to 10. Press the set a couple more times until it gets to the ED setting. And close the top. And I'm going to stop it again right when it gets to the end of the red. See what happens there. Okay. And it's about the same as it was at 15. So I think when it comes to the amount of air taken out of a product, you have to pretty much watch the gauge more so than the setting of the vacuum. But the setting of the vacuum, really, I pretty much leave it at around 20 to 25, and then use the gauge to stop it when I want it to stop. As far as liquids and freezing things that have liquids, they should be cooled because they do give the impression of starting to boil, but actually it's not boiling. What it does is, as it's removing the air, it causes the molecules to move faster, which makes it look like it's boiling, but it's not really generating heat. But at any rate, freezing foods with liquids in them, whether you have it at a higher minute for the vacuum or a lower minute for the vacuum, it doesn't pull any of the liquids out, but it does take a little more time to do the sealing. So I think rather than the 45 start, you're better off to start at maybe 30 or 35. And as you learn to use the machine, keep an eye more so on this meter than just the pressure time. You have a lot more control with this meter because you know how much of the air is coming out of it, because other than that, it goes ahead and seals, does the pressure thing, and you don't really know what's going to happen to the product until after it's done. So it's a little bit of a trial and error, but once you get to know what you're doing and the products that you seal, whether it be meat or soups or vegetables or whatever it is, you'll get to know what pressure or where this meter should be for each of the things that you're doing. So to me, this is a lot of control. It's just a learning process. But the vacuum sealing, and as far as using this for sous vide, as I said in my review, I've used the food processor for years and years. I've sealed foods with the food processor and cooked them sous vide and water leaked in. The seals gave. I've frozen vegetables that a month or so later I look and there's air in them. So the seals don't hold. This does. This will hold the seal, and whatever you seal is going to stay sealed and it's not going to leak. So I hope you liked this review, and I hope it was helpful for you, and thank you for watching.